Okay. Gauri, yes, we can first look at your doubts. So, yes, tell the question.
So in Kurg, the production of tea is three times the production of coffee.
Okay.
And if A% more tea and B% more coffee were produced, the aggregate amount would be 5C.
5C, 5 times the coffee amount.
5C% more.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Uh, but if B% more tea
Hmm.
and A% more coffee were produced,
Hmm.
the aggregate amount produced would be 3C% more.
Okay.
So, what is the ratio of A is to B?
Okay. And everything is in terms of quantity of tea and coffee, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So the aggregate amount is also in terms of quantity. It is the aggregate amount of coffee and tea produced, right?
Yeah, aggregate amount would be 3C% more or 5C% more. So, it's in percentage, the
In
aggregate amount.
percentage, I get it,
The
but
quantity.
talking about the quantities. Okay. So, and initially, tea, the production of tea is 3 times the production of coffee, right?
Yes.
Um, okay. So, what I can do is I'll be forming two equations. Fine. First equation is if I increase the production of tea by A%, the increased production will be A% of tea, the increased production only. I'm just comparing the increased production on both the sides. The increased production on coffee will be B% of coffee. Now I know that tea is okay, I'll write it first. B% of coffee and the overall increased production will be 5C% of tea and coffee. Did we first understand this equation?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Okay, now because I know that production of tea is 3 times the production of coffee, I will substitute tea by 3C. Okay, so this becomes 3C here. Insha, I should not take C because it is 5C%. Um, okay, so I'll take T as T and I'll take coffee as, let's say, M. I'll take coffee as M because I just realized that our variables are same. Okay. So what will my equation become? If you see, my entire equation is going to become 3am by 100 plus bm by 100 is equal to 5c into 4m. So 20 cm by 100. Do you agree with this equation? Where your 100 gets cancelled, your m gets cancelled, and your final equation is 3a plus b is equal to 20c. This is equation number 1. Okay. Now, similarly, we can find equation number 2, where the increase is first b% on t plus a% on coffee is equal to overall increase of 3C% on tea plus coffee. Okay. Again, I can substitute T as 3M. So this becomes 3M and this T also becomes 3M. So my final equation after, ignoring hundreds and after cancelling M's would be 3B plus A is equal to 3 fours are 12, 12C. Equation number 2. Do we get this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Now I am asked the ratio of A and B, which means I should try to necessarily eliminate C. Now, when C is 20 over here and 12 over here, what I can do is to make it same, I can multiply this equation by 3 and this equation by 5. Do we get that? So this becomes 9A plus 3B is equal to 60C. This becomes 15A plus 5, sorry, 15B plus 5A is equal to 60C. 60C is same on both the sides. So I can just equate their left hand sides. 9A plus 3B is equal to 15B plus 5A. Wherever you have a doubt, girls, please stop me and ask so that I can clarify. So 4A is equal to 12B. So your A by B is 3:1. Is this the answer, Gauri?
Oh, yeah, it's 3 by 1.
Did you understand what we did?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
So one thing that you have to be careful is I have just compared the increased part on both the sides, which is why my question becomes simple, becomes simpler. If you compare the new value on both the sides, it will be 100 plus A% of 100, which would be too much, right? So just compare the increased portion on both the sides, and that would make your equation smaller. Shall we do the next question? You had one more doubt, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So yeah, tell me.
In a state, the production of wheat increased by 30%, while the per capita production of wheat increased by 14%.
Per
So,
capita production or per capita consumption?
a per capita production of wheat.
Okay, increased by 40%.
14, 1 4.
14%. Okay.
The percentage by which the population of the state increased in the same period is closest to.
Okay. So production of wheat increased by 30%. Per capita production of wheat increased by 14%. And population increased by how much percent? So basically, how do I per capita production of wheat is wheat upon the population, right? So basically, your per capita production of wheat, which is nothing but wheat upon population. So per capita production of wheat into your population will give you the total production of wheat. Let's understand this. Per capita production is production per head, right? So if I say per capita production of wheat, it is total production of wheat upon population, because it is per head into population will not give you nothing but the total production of wheat. Did you understand this relationship?
So the W is the total wheat produced for the entire population.
Yes. Now this is very similar to that concept where we did P into Q is equal to expense, where we use that offsetting method. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Now per capita production has increased by 14%. So this has increased by 14%. I don't know about this, but my wheat, overall wheat has increased by 30%. Do you understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now for this, what did we do? What did we do to find out this? We used fractions. So
Yes,
if
ma'am.
something increases by 14%, the fraction becomes 114 by 100, because of course I don't know the exact fraction for 14%, right? This I don't know. And what will be the fraction if something increases by 30%?
13 by 10.
13 by 10, right? So you're supposed to find this x. So if I cancel this out, you're left with x. So x is nothing but 130 upon 114, right? which means clearly population has also increased because my fraction is more than 1. Do you see this?
Yes, ma'am.
It has increased by how much? So when I say 130 upon 114, clearly if I rewrite this fraction in this way, I can also write it like this. Is this okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So my population has increased by this much percentage. So what is the equivalent percentage? If I just have to calculate it manually, 16 upon 114. If I have to convert into percentage, I'll have to multiply this fraction by 100. Okay, let us try to reduce wherever possible. Uh, 2 eights are 2 fives are 10 and 2 sevens are 14. So 800 upon 57 is what I'm getting. 800 upon 57 will be,
14.03.
so it is closest to 14%. That should be your answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then let us continue with where we stopped yesterday. Y is the sum of three quantities which are directly proportional to x, x square, and x cube. So, yesterday we discussed one thing, that if y is proportional to x, and if I want to remove the proportionality sign and write it in terms of y equal to, how do I do it? So from this, if I want to write in this format, should I write y is equal to x?
Y upon X.
So if I want to remove this proportionality sign and put an equal to sign instead, I will also always have to introduce a constant. This constant is called a proportionality constant. Why I have to do this over here is because here they have given us multiple proportionalities, but we don't have maybe enough what to say, combinations which can satisfy those. So I'll show you how to do it. In the second proportionality, where y is proportional to y x square, this also can be written as, let's say, bx square, and this can be written as, let's say, cx cube. Now I am told that y is the sum of these three quantities. So my final equation on which I will be solving my question actually would be this. Is Are you guys with me till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now it is said when x is 1, y is 4. So I'm going to substitute that. When x is 1, y is 4. So 4 is equal to a plus b plus c. This is equation 1. Okay, when x is 2, y is 8. So what will be my equation? Tell me quickly.
8 is equal to 2A plus 4B plus 16C. Sorry, 8C.
And third is when x is 3, y is 18.
18 is equal to 3A plus 9B
Hmm.
plus 27C.
Right? So what is the value of y when x is 7? So clearly, to find the value of y when x is 7, I need to know the values of a, b, c. Right? How will I find the values of a, b, c? Using these three equations. Fine. So let us see if we can figure out something from these three equations. How would we be able to find the values? Anything that strikes you? What if I multiply the first equation by 2 and subtract it from the second equation? Let's see what we get. Multiplying first equation by 2 is what? 8 is equal to 2a.
2A plus 2B plus 2C.
Correct. And if I write the second equation as it is, it becomes
2a plus 4b plus 8c.
right? So if I do the second equation minus first equation, all these things gets cancelled and I'm left with 2b plus 6c is equal to 0, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So I can hold on to this for a while. Okay. Is there any other way we can get one more equation related to B and C? Okay, what if we do equation 1 plus equation 2 minus equation 3? What are we getting? Let us check. 4 plus 8 minus 18 will give you
Minus 6.
minus 6. A plus 2a minus 3a is 0.
0.
B plus 4b minus 9b is minus
Minus
4b.
4.
And C plus 8c minus 27c is minus 18c. Correct? Which means 4b plus 18c is equal to 6, or you can also write as 2b plus 9c is equal to. Do we understand this equation?
Yes, ma'am.
So now if I see this equation and this equation, can we solve these and get the values of B and C? From this equation, I know that
Yes.
2B is equal to minus 6C, correct? I can directly substitute it over here. Minus 6C plus 9C is equal to 3. So 3C is equal to 3, which means C is equal to 1 is the first value that I get.
Yes, ma'am.
So if C is 1, what is the value of B?
Minus 3.
Very good. And if B is minus 3, what is the value of A?
6.
6. So now if I substitute all these values in this equation and value of x as 7, can you find the value of y?
Yes, ma'am.
I think calculation part you should be able to manage by yourself, but this is how this question will be approached. Okay, moving ahead. Okay, this is an important question asked a lot of times. So it's a previous year, I mean, it's a CAT question asked in the exam previously. Let's look at it. The speed of a railway engine is 40 kilometers per hour when no compartment is attached, which means speed when no compartment is attached is 40 kilometers per hour. The reduction in speed is directly proportional to the square root of the number of compartments attached. This is important. What is directly proportional? Reduction in speed, which means how much ever, let's say my new speed is S. So the old speed minus new speed is nothing but the reduction in speed. Do you agree with this?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is directly proportional to the number of square root of number of compartments attached. Okay, so this getting this right is important. Okay, now the question is not that difficult. If the speed of the train carried by this engine is 24 kilometers per hour when 8 compartments are attached. So now in this case, I know that the speed is 24 and the compartments are 8, right? Again, if I have to remove a proportionality constant, if I have to remove a proportionality sign, what I can do is I can write it equal to and use a constant, or I can also in this case use my direct concept. If any two things are directly proportional, what remains constant between them?
The ratio.
So I can say that S0 minus S1 upon N1 will be equal to S0 minus S2 upon root of n2. Are we clear with this?
So the difference we always take as S0, and like the base for the difference will be S0.
Because it is
And
reduction in speed. So the maximum speed is 40. And as and when you keep on adding compartments, the speed gets reducing. But the reduction will always happen from 40. So your S1 is given to me as 24, N1 is given to me as 8, and I am said what is the maximum number of compartments that can be carried. I am asked N2 when your S2 is almost 0. Do you understand this? See, when can you carry the maximum compartments? That is when the train comes at almost a halt.
yes, ma'am.
More the compartments you keep on adding, lesser the speed it becomes. So your maximum compartments can be that time when the speed is almost 0. Of course, I don't want it 0, but I'm going to first find it at 0 what is the number that I'm getting. So let's first put down these values. 40 minus 24 upon square root of 8 is equal to 40 minus 0 upon n2. Let us first find n2 in this case. What is 40 minus 24?
16.
16, right? This is square root of 8 is nothing but 2 root 2 is equal to 40 upon root n2. If I have to just quickly solve this, 8 twos are, 8 fives are, 2 and 2 gets cancelled. So your root n2 is 5 into root 2. So n2, if I square on both the sides, is 50. Did we understand this first calculation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now what would we understand from this here is when 50 compartments are attached, the train comes to a halt. So what will be the maximum number of compartments that can be carried by the engine?
50 or 49.
49. Because at 50, the train stops. So one compartment lesser can be the maximum number of compartments possible. All right. Total expenses of a boarding house are partly fixed and partly varying linearly with the number of boarders. So this is like let's say if you're organizing a party, there are certain expenses which are fixed expenses, like the uh, rent of the place, whereas certain expenses are variable, like the rent of the expenses of food will depend on the number of dishes, but the hall or the the hall price will not depend on the number of people. It has to be a fixed rent price. So something like that over here. So your total expenses of the boarding house are, some things are fixed and some things are variable depending on the number of boarders. Did we understand this equation?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now the first statement says the average expense per boarder is 600 rupees when there are 20 boarders. So n is 20. And in this case, if for 20 boarders average is 600, what should be the total expense for the 20 boarders?
20 into 600,
Which would be
1200. Oh,
12.
sorry, 1000.
Okay, this is important. This should, a lot of times students make a mistake and write 600 over here. But 600 is an average expense. Here you're supposed to write the total expense. So it has to be 600 into 20. Similarly, we can form another equation. So from this data, what should be the next equation? Tell me.
20,000 is
Hmm.
equal to
Hmm.
fixed expenses plus 40B.
And now because we have two equations and two variables, can we quickly solve it?
Yes, ma'am.
If I subtract, this gets cancelled and I'm left with 8,000 is equal to Correct? So with this information, can you tell me the value of F?
4,000.
4,000.
Perfect. Okay. And now what have they asked? What is the average expense when there are 100 boarders? So first let's try to find the total expense with 100 boarders. So fixed remains as it is plus 100 into variable, right? So 4,000 plus 40,000 is 44,000. And average will be dividing by the number of boarders. Your average expense becomes
440.
440. Okay. One part of a hostel's monthly expense is fixed, and another part is proportional to the number of its boarders. So first, let's form an equation. Expense is equal
Same as the
to
previous one.
yes plus the number of boarders. The hostel collects 1600 rupees per month from each boarder, one part of a hostel's monthly expense. Okay, so this is what hostel collects. Okay. When the number of boarders is 50, the profit of the hostel is 200 rupees per boarder. So first let's try to find out the collection of hostel and the expense of hostel in the first case. So when the number of boarders is 50, what would be the collection in that case?
1,600 into 50.
Which will give you
8,000. 80,000.
80,000 is the collection in the first case, right? And what would be the expense in the first case? What would be the equation? Expense is equal
E
to
equal to F plus 50V.
50V. And I am told that the profit is 200 per boarder, which means the total profit has to be 200 into 50,
10,000.
right? So your total profit is 10,000. So if profit is 10,000, collection is 80,000, can I say the expense is 70,000?
Yes, ma'am.
So this becomes your first equation. Similarly, I want you to find the second equation and directly tell me the equation.
101,250 is equal to F plus 75V.
Okay, this was Gauri, I think, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So Rachel, you're getting the same equation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so clearly I'll have to solve this equation where I get, it's very similar to the last question where you get the value of V, you get the value of F, right? And then you substitute those values in the required data when your number of boarders is 80. So in that case, what will be your profit? So I find the expense in that case, I find the income in that case, and thus I find the profit in that case. Do we understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think you should be able to do this by yourself after this point, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you might try that later. We'll not take up time in the class to do it. Okay, moving to the next question, 24. 100 million bacteria can completely decompose a garbage dump in 15 days, and 60 million bacteria can do so in 30 days. If the same quantity of garbage is added to the initial quantity of the dump every day, how many bacteria will be required to completely decompose the dump in 10 days? So, how can we start with this?
It's a case of inverse proportionality. So the
Correct.
product will be the same. The product remains constant.
So, you mean that more the bacteria, slower will be the decomposition or faster will
Faster.
be the decomposition?
Faster.
So if more the bacteria, faster the decomposition, Would it be direct proportionality or inverse proportionality? So if
But more the bacteria, number of days are lesser.
okay, yeah. So in terms of bacteria and number of days, yes, correct. So that would be your inverse proportion. Agreed. Then how what can we do to move ahead?
The product remains constant.
Okay,
So,
okay.
so this will be the same as B3 and D3.
Hmm.
So B is equal to B3 and D3, and D3 is given to us.
Hmm.
So we can just equate everything, maybe.
The problem over here is the garbage is not constant. The same quantity of garbage is added to the initial quantity of the dump every day. So it's not that they are starting with one particular quantity and then the bacteria goes on decomposing it for all 15 days. Which
Okay.
is why this direct equation will not work. Because every time the quantity of garbage is changing. So when I say bacteria into number of days, actually you're getting the total garbage, right? Whatever
Yes.
bacteria decomposes for X number of days gives you the total garbage. But my problem is my garbage keeps on changing. So for 15 days and for 30 days, my amount of garbage is not same, which is why these cannot be equal. So in this case, we'll have to go slightly differently. Let's say that my initial dump, initial garbage dump, which was there, is let's say A. I'm just assuming a variable as the quantity, right? And the garbage added every day on a daily basis is let's say X. So now let us this equal equation, now let's try to make it equal. How you can do that? So in the first case it is 100 bacteria, 100 million bacteria, and how many number of days? 15 number of days, right? So in when I say it's 15 number of days, which means just a second, this will be your total garbage will be A plus the garbage added for next 14 days into X. Did you understand this?
No, ma'am.
It will be 15X. Okay, I'll explain again. Your bacteria into your number of days is the total garbage decomposed. So from the first statement, if it is 100 million bacteria, decomposing the garbage for 15 days, the total garbage decomposed is the initial quantity plus the X quantity that is being added every day for the 15 days. So 15X. Now did you understand this? Let me frame a
Yes.
second equation, maybe that may clarify. If there are 60 million bacteria working for 30 days, my total garbage decomposed will be A plus 30X. Is this okay? So clearly I have two equations, two variables A and X, right? So I can clearly solve these. First, if you want to simplify these two products. So I can write this as 1500 is equal to A plus 15X and 1800 is equal to A plus 30X. So if I subtract these equations, 300 is 15X. So clearly X is 20. This is the
20.
first thing I get. And by substituting the value of X, I can also get the value of A. If I substitute in this equation, 15 into 20 is 300, goes that side, so A becomes 1200. Are you with me up till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Now they are saying how many bacteria will be required to completely decompose the dump in 10 days. So I don't know the number of bacteria, but number of days I have is 10, and the total uh, the dump that I have is 1200 plus 20 into 10, which is 200. So that gives me 1400. So the bacteria that is required is 140 million.
Yes, ma'am.
Understood? So this question is slightly different because bacteria is not directly proportional to bacteria is not just inversely proportional to the number of days because the garbage dump keeps on changing. Moving ahead, this is again a nice question. An airline has a free luggage allowance and charges for excess luggage, which is at a fixed rate per kg. Okay. Now, two passengers, Ramu and Pooja, have 80 kg of luggage between them and they are charged 1000 and 3000 respectively for excess luggage. Had the entire excess luggage belonged to one of them, the excess luggage charge would have been 6000. So let's try to first understand this situation. Let's say that you are two friends traveling. Okay, you know that you have a certain free luggage allowance and excess luggage you have to pay a fine per kg. Now, if you both have together 80 kg, which means in that 80 kg, both will have their own free allowance
Yes, ma'am.
and both together will have that excess luggage. Okay. Now Ramu is charged 1000 rupees and Pooja is charged 3000 rupees. Very clearly, it means that Pooja has 3 times excess luggage than Ramu. Agreed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
let's say for Ramu, the luggage is free allowance plus X is the excess luggage. And for Pooja, the luggage will be free allowance plus 3x. Correct? And both of this together is 80 kg. Now let's see the second question. Second statement. Had the entire luggage belonged to one of them? So let's say instead of Ramu and Pooja, this entire F plus X plus F plus 3X was with Ramu. Then what all part would have been a part of excess luggage?
4x.
Plus 1F.
Yeah, F plus 4x.
Are you understanding me? So this is 6 times the excess luggage. So can I say this is equivalent to 6x? If 1000 was charged for x and 3000 was charged for 3x, can I say 6000 will be charged for 6x?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Which means your fixed luggage is equivalent to 2x. Agreed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now if you see the first equation, 2x plus x, yani 3x plus 2x plus 3x, yani 5x is equal to 80, which means your x is equal to 10, which means Ramu had 20 kg allowance plus 10 kg excess and Pooja had 20 kg free allowance plus 30 kg excess. What
Yes,
is
ma'am.
the weight in kg of Pooja's luggage? 50. And what is the free luggage allowance? 20. It's a logical question. Doesn't need a lot of calculation. It's a cat question, but this covers two questions.
Yes, ma'am. Got it.
All right. Then let's move to 28th question. A potential recruit gets a total of 55% marks. There are 6 performance parameters with maximum marks of 100 in each parameter. The recruit gets marks in the ratio of 10 is to 9 is to 8 is to 7 is to 6 is to 5 respectively in different parameters. In the first 3 parameters, the criteria for clearing performance score is 55% and for the next three parameters is 50%. How many parameters has the recruit cleared? How do we do this? Maximum marks in all the six parameters is 100. And all six parameters, the ratio of marks scored by the recruit is given, and the total marks scored by the recruit is given. So first of all, because there are six performance parameters, can I say the total marks or the maximum marks is 600?
Yes, ma'am.
And recruit gets 55% of 600. So what is 55% of 600?
300.
And what is 5% of 600?
30.
So recruit actually gets how much marks as a total? 330. Now this 330 marks comes out from these 6 marks which are in this ratio. So can I say my first marks is, let's say, 10x, my second marks is, let's say, 9x, my third marks is, let's say, 8x, 7x, 6x, and 5x. All adding up all gives you 330. So what is the left hand side adding up to?
45x.
45x. So what is x coming down to?
7.3.
Or let us keep in fractions. If I cancel by 15, 15 threes are, 15 twos are, 15 twos are. So your x is 22 by 3, right? Let us keep it in fractions. Okay, so now if I substitute this x as 22.3 in each of the marks, what will be the marks that I'm getting? So first will be 220 by 3, right? Second is what? 9 into 22 by 3, which will give you,
198.
correct. Third, 176, right? Fourth will be 154. Uh,
132.
sorry,
132.
132. No, just 44, no? Because 6x, 3 and 2 will get cancelled, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And this will be 110 by 3, correct? These are the actual marks that the recruit got. Now the criteria was that in the first three parameters, the performance score should be at least 55%. So 55% of 100 is 55, right? So which from these three, are there any scores which are less than 55?
44.
No, no, from the first three, because this criteria is only for the first three parameters,
No, ma'am.
right? Which means first three parameters cleared the criteria. For the next three parameters, it is 50%, which means I have to check whether any of these scores is less than 50. So clearly 44 is not clearing the criteria. What about 110 by 3? Not clearing the criteria. And what about 154 by 3? Is it more than 50?
No, ma'am.
Yes.
So how many parameters are clearing the criteria? 4 parameters.
4.
All right. Then moving ahead. In a village, the number of males to females is 5:4. The ratio of number of literate males to literate females is 2:3. The ratio of number of illiterate males to illiterate females is 4:3. If 3,600 males in the village are literate, what are the total number of females in the village? So in this case, what I can do is, I can start with this. Number of literate males is 3,600. Now, do we have any ratio which includes literate males?
2:3. Literate males is to literate females.
Correct. So if literate males to literate females is 2 is to 3. So if 2 parts is 3600, 3 parts should be. How would you do this? If 2 parts is 3600, 3 parts should be. So I know that this is 2 into 1800. So this also should be 3 into 1800. Now I have literate males and literate females, which means the total literate people in the village is 9000. Now what else do I have? The number of illiterate males to illiterate females is 4 is to 3. Okay, and males to females is 5 is to 4. We can of course form equations, but I was just thinking if there's a better way out. Okay, let's try to see this. So let's say out of total, let's say total number of population in the village is 9x, where your male population is 5x and your female population is 4x. Okay. Now, literate males, we know that out of males, the literate males are 3600 and literate females are 5400. For illiterate, the ratio is 4 is to 3, which means if this is 4y, this is going to be 3y.
3y.
Correct. I am asked the total number of females in the village, which means 4x is what I am asked. So clearly I can form two equations over here. 5x is equal to 3600 plus 4y, and 4x is equal to 5400 plus 3y. Because two equations, two variables, I can clearly eliminate one of them. So let's say if I multiply this equation by 4 and this by 5, x will be, or I'll better eliminate y. Why? Because I want my answer in terms of x. So why to do that double calculation? I'll multiply this equation by 3 and this equation by 4. So what will you get? 15x is equal to and
21600
correct.
plus 12y.
Very good. So I of course subtract this gets cancelled. So your x becomes
10800.
correct. The number of females is nothing but 4x, right? So your answer will be 10800 into 4, which will give you 4
43200.
Did we understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. Moving to the last question of this sheet. A granite stone has been purchased to build the kitchen platform and the dining area of Mr. Kumar's bungalow. The cost of the stone varies directly to the square of its weight. Now, what happened was the stone broke into 4 parts, whose weights are in the ratio 2 is to 4 is to 7 is to 11, which means the total stone was of 11 plus 11, 22, this weight. Do we all agree with this? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
If the granite stone had broken into 4 equal parts of the weight, this would have it would have led to a loss of 73,600. What is the actual cost of the original unbroken granite stone? So instead of this distribution, If the distribution would have been 6x, 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 and 6x, there would have been a loss of 73,600. Okay. Now, clearly, first thing that we need to understand is the proportionality. So, I have been told that cost is directly proportional to the square of weights, right? Which means for the first part which is broken, the cost would have been proportional to 4x square. Second part, the cost would have been proportional to 16x square, and so on, right? And they have said that comparing to these two, my loss would have been 73,600. So I'll have to take the difference between the total cost in both the case.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so first let's do that. If the stone is 24x, can I say the actual, the original cost of stone would have been 24 square, so 576x square. Now, in the first case that happened, the cost is 4x square plus 16x square plus 49x square plus 121x square, which is equal to
190.
E and 190, correct? Okay, and the second case is 36x square 4 times, which is 144x square, correct? Now this difference gives you a loss of 73,600. So what is 190 minus 144?
46.
So 46x square gives you a loss of 73,600. So your x square, let us try to cancel it. Clearly, in such questions, generally the cancellations are easier and they are possible, right? Um,
1600. X square is 1600, so x will be 40.
okay, you will not need to refine x. Why? Because you're supposed to find the original cost of the granite stone, which is 576x square. You directly need to find 576 into 1600. Ideally, this should be your answer.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, right? So, I mean, you should be able to do all these questions without calculator, of course, because calculator won't be allowed there. And how did I guess this as my answer is because I need two zeros at the end, and 6 into 6, the multiplication will always end with 6. This was the only option which satisfied this condition. So I think with this we are done with these questions of ratios. We can stop our session here for today.